When Putin launched the invasion of Ukraine, he believed Kyiv would collapse within just a few days at that time. Russia possessed overwhelming numerical superiority and vast stockpiles of weapons. In the Kremlin's calculations, Ukraine stood almost no chance of survival, yet from the very first days, a small, inexpensive weapon worth only a tiny fraction of a Russian tank shattered that plan into thin air. Quietly, without fanfare, it appeared at street corners, in trenches, turning multi-million-dollar war machines into useless scrap metal. This was the tank killer, born from collaboration between the UK and Sweden, capable of firing within seconds, and employing a top-attack tactic targeting the weakest point on armored vehicles: their roofs. It became a true nightmare for the Russian army in the early months of the war, accounting for the destruction of up to 40% of Moscow's tanks lost on the battlefield, forcing Putin to change his tactics. In today's program, we will explore the story of this small yet game-changing weapon and why it remains a haunting threat to Russian tanks to this day. We invite you to join us when President Putin initiated his invasion campaign against Ukraine. He was certain Kyiv would fall within days. Russia then held overwhelming advantages, its population far larger, its arsenal of tanks and armored vehicles massive. In the Kremlin's strategic calculations, Ukraine had virtually no chance of survival, but this calculation proved to be a grave mistake. Within the first month of the war, Russia's momentum was halted largely thanks to a small yet extremely effective weapon, costing just $33,000, co-developed by Sweden and the United Kingdom. This weapon destroyed hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Russian tanks and armored vehicles. This was the NLAW New Light Anti-Tank Weapon, a next-generation portable anti-tank missile system. True to its name, it was designed specifically to hunt and destroy tanks at the outset. When President Putin assumed armored formations would easily overwhelm and break through Ukrainian defenses, the NLAW emerged and reversed the tide. It was also among the first batches of weapons provided by the UK to Ukraine, according to the Times. By May 2022, the NLAW was responsible for destroying 30 to 40% of all Russian tanks lost at that point, a figure sufficient to cripple Moscow's mechanized warfare strategy. In the early phase of the conflict, rapid anti-tank capability was exactly what Ukraine desperately needed. When the NLAW demonstrated its battlefield effectiveness, Britain immediately accelerated its aid. On May 23, 2022, London announced it would send an additional 6,000 NLAW units to Ukraine, aiming to halt Putin's advancing armored waves. Even before drones became widespread and before the famous Javelin missiles gained prominence, the NLAW had already become the most effective tank killer in Ukraine's arsenal. Why was this compact weapon so devastating? In a May 2025 article, National Security Sonar called the NLAW the tank killer that stopped Putin's army in Ukraine. According to the publication, the key factor was that the NLAW had undergone nearly a decade of research and refinement. Before entering service, from 1999 to 2008, Sweden and the UK worked closely to fine-tune every detail, creating an almost perfect design, officially entering use in 2009. Beyond serving British and Swedish forces, the NLAW was quickly purchased by numerous other nations, including Finland, Switzerland, Indonesia, and Malaysia, measuring just about 1 meter in length and weighing 125 kilograms. The NLAW is light enough for soldiers to carry across any terrain. This high mobility makes it ideal for firing from tight, concealed positions such as trenches, street corners, or buildings. President Putin had assumed Russian tanks could simply roll through Ukrainian cities and towns. But when armored units fell into an NLAW targeting range from hard-to-detect locations, their chances of escaping ambushes were nearly zero, as revealed by AIM recognition. The NLAW anti-tank missile system is truly a monster on the modern battlefield. Equipped with a fire-and-forget mechanism, soldiers simply lock onto the target, pull the trigger, and immediately leave the position, no need to guide the missile. The intelligent guidance system inside the missile then autonomously handles the rest with deadly precision. A notable feature is that the NLAW can be fitted with launch tubes of either 115 mm or 150 mm caliber. Depending on combat needs, it also comes with a foldable launch tube, convenient carrying straps, and optimized batteries to enhance soldier mobility. For targeting, the NLAW features an optical sight with 25x magnification. As long as the target remains in the sight for about 3 seconds even, if moving the missile will lock on and destroy it. These features transformed the NLAW into a name that every tank crew fears. In a recent exclusive video, YouTube channel Daily Mail showed one of its reporters directly experiencing and witnessing how the missile operates. The exact missile manufacturing technology remains classified military secret. But what has been revealed is enough to explain why the NLAW became Ukraine's top tank killer. Inside each missile lies an advanced electronic brain. These smart projectiles use POS, predicted line of sight technology, predicting the target's trajectory, allowing the shooter to lock on in mere seconds before firing and forgetting. This explains why soldiers need only keep the target in sight for about 5 seconds before launch. As the shooter tracks the target, the missile system begins analyzing distance, movement speed, and calculates the optimal intercept point. Once the calculation is complete, all the soldier needs to do is pull the trigger. Immediately, 2 engines in the NLAW activate. The first engine, containing minimal fuel and a special amount of water, propels the missile out of the tube while vaporizing the water to eliminate backblast. This allows Ukrainian soldiers to fire from the shoulder, even from inside buildings, without fear of recoil. Then, the second engine ignites, propelling the missile toward its target at deadly speed. The NLAW is a short-range killer, effective from 20 to 800 meters. Its 25x magnification sight allows Ukrainian fighters to clearly see Russian armor from a safe distance without needing to close in. Regarding penetration, estimates vary. AIM recognition suggests 400 to 650 millimeters, while the National Security Sonar reports over 500 millimeters, but regardless of the exact figure, even advanced rolled homogeneous armor becomes meaningless, explosive. Reactive armor era on modern tanks also proves insufficient against the NLAW's strike. In short, it is a nightmare at close range, powerful, compact, and capable of firing from virtually any position. These very characteristics distinguish the NLAW from Ukraine's other tank killer. The Javelin missile both belong to the fire and forget category, but the NLAW is optimized for short-range urban combat in tight spaces. In contrast, the Javelin excels in longer-range engagement, capable of striking targets up to 2,500 meters away. According to the National Security Sonar, the Javelin uses infrared guidance to lock onto targets, whereas the NLAW relies on an integrated onboard computer inside the missile. NLAW's key advantage lies in its overfly top attack OTA mode, which allows the warhead to fly directly above the tank before detonating downward. At a height of about 91 centimeters above the target, magnetic and optical sensors in the missile's nose detect when it is directly over the tank. Instantly, the warhead detonates, firing a superheated metal jet capable of penetrating up to 50 centimeters of steel. It is precisely this second mode that has earned the NLAW its reputation as a tank killer. But its ability to also destroy helicopters, infantry, and light vehicles is what truly elevates it to a strategic weapon, according to magazine 1945. Most Ukrainian soldiers are conscripts. Many had never handled a weapon before the war broke out. Yet, after just 1 hour of training, they could operate the NLAW proficiently. This weapon transformed the battlefield from the very first months. Even the least experienced soldiers need only point, aim, and fire. The rest is handled by the smart machine. Russian forces have paid dearly for underestimating this deadly simplicity. However, on today's battlefield, the NLAW appears less frequently than during its initial deployment in Ukraine. The reason is not technical. It still possesses the same tank-killing power, especially effective in urban and confined environments where it helped Ukraine withstand Russia's initial assaults. The issue lies elsewhere. After enduring prolonged attacks from the NLAW and similar anti-tank weapons, President Putin was forced to change tactics, as reported by Daily Mail World, in tight spaces. The NLAW maximizes its advantage thanks to its extremely fast firing speed. In contrast, Systems like the Javelin require more time to lock onto targets, especially in complex urban settings like narrow streets, trenches, or cramped positions. However, President Putin shifted strategy, moving from large-scale assaults on major cities to focusing on expanding operations in the Donbas region. There, the terrain is open and expansive, with only scattered settlements surrounded by farmland and sparse trees. This hunting ground better suits weapons like the American Javelin. This shift clearly reflects the evolving battlefield today in Donbas. It's common to see Ukrainian soldiers deploying javelins or FPV drones in particular. FPV drones have become so widespread they've effectively replaced the NLAW as Kyiv's primary tank killer. By May 2025, statistics showed these drones contributed to the destruction of up to 65% of all Russian tanks destroyed in the war. Yet there's a thought-provoking argument. The NLAW was the original teacher. The ambush tactics, quick strike, rapid withdrawal, and targeting the weakest points on tanks, pioneered by NLAW teams in the early days, became the blueprint later. Adopted and refined by Ukrainian drone operators, on the battlefield of Ukraine, the NLAW was not just an anti-tank missile, it was a teacher, imparting a costly lesson about the fatal vulnerability of Russian tanks, their thin, poorly protected roofs. It was precisely this insight that enables today's drones to drop bombs or carry out precise suicide attacks on the exact weak spots previously exploited. The second lesson the NLAW taught was even more profound. You can destroy a multi-million-dollar war machine with a weapon costing only a fraction of that. This is the tactical truth Ukraine absorbed from the war's earliest months, and one that might have taken much longer to learn without the NLAW. More than just a lesson, the NLAW remains a trusted weapon for Ukraine. By July 2024, according to UK Defence Zono, the UK had supplied 12,000 NLAW launchers to Kyiv, with all 6,000 units from the first batch already expended. This proves that in the hands of Ukrainian soldiers, the NLAW remains a key trump card against Russian armored forces. Perhaps the NLAW's most enduring legacy is its role as the first tank killer, inspiring Ukraine's drone-based armored destruction strategy deployed after Russia shifted focus to Donbas. The hard-earned lessons Ukraine learned during the first months of Putin's invasion were quickly applied to other weapon systems. Thus, the NLAW can be seen as indirectly responsible for destroying even more Russian tanks than it directly eliminated. The NLAW fired the first shot, paving the way for Ukrainian drones to take flight. This is precisely why the NLAW remains a valuable weapon as long as Ukraine continues fighting Russian forces. And here lies a cruel irony. While the NLAW proved how easily Russian tanks could be destroyed, Russia struggles helplessly against Ukrainian armored vehicles. There have been cases where Russian forces hit a Ukrainian tank up to 70 times but remained completely ineffective against its armor. Ladies and gentlemen, our video concludes here. Thank you for your attention and continued support of WW Focus channel. We look forward to seeing you in our next videos.